Greetings, Tony Mobley here with a new conversation with Tony Mobley. And I'm here tonight to talk about a good friend of mine, Jeff Widgren, is here tonight to talk about his creation, Zoom Test Kit, Zoom Test Kitchen. So why are we here? We're here because life has provided me opportunities to have real conversations with real people. So that is why we're here, and that's what we try to do. Tonight, as I said, we'll be talking with my friend Jeff Widgren, and we hope to help others with these conversations. But I need your help. How do we get started on this path that we want to make a difference? So the way that we do that is by you registering at my website, conversationwithtonymobley.com, and registering for the Mukana chat. The Mukana chat is a place where you can go and you can ask your questions, and then you can vote, have those questions that you ask voted up and down, and then we can make sure that those questions with the most votes get a chance to get answered tonight. So go to Conversation with Tony Mobley and register, and you will see it. All right. So if you like this conversation and you like the conversations that we've had in the past, I ask you go to YouTube and like and subscribe and ring that bell. Ring that bell. So tonight we're going to have our conversation with Jeff Widgren. Thank you all so much for being here. And so now we're going to actually ask Jeff to come on camera for just a quick second and just give us a brief bio of the things that he's doing. And then we'll come back to our other guests and I'll let you hear from them as well. Hello, Jeff, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hey, Tony, thanks for having me and the panel. It's great to get together. I've been watching the conversations that you've been, having and developing over the last several weeks, and it's just pretty cool to see just a number of people in the industry itself, and their creations and executions, and if I start with kind of what keeps me busy today, I would say do a lot of freelance work, from as simple as some Zoom management, complex Zoom management, multi meeting, multi webinar Zoom, along with producing into Zoom. And my tool of the trade is vMix, and then all the tricks that go into that as well. So with that, in the beginning of let's say January 2020, when COVID hit, that was my conversion. I come from, and I won't spill it all out right now, deep history, but I basically had just departed the IT industry and the sales engineering side of things. I lived inside of data centers and in front of customers and purchasing decision makers, and I converted. I was ready to just move on. I didn't leave the industry. I didn't resign to leave the industry, but I resigned to make my next transition in the industry, not knowing what that COVID was actually on its way and the consequences of it and so forth. So that caught me by surprise, but I don't like sitting idle. So I evaluated a lot of things and started digging into production, which I'll share kind of where that came from. It wasn't a brand new start, but it definitely was new in the full-time range. So I'll end there. I have all kinds of things, and I've never been
Fantastic, Jeff.
accused of not talking enough. So I'll try to keep my responses
if you
trimmed.
will, please share your website, your company name.
Yeah, so my production company is called Stream Sharks with an S at the end, because there's one overseas that I think is Stream Sharks. I didn't know that till later. But streamsharks.com is my production company. And then there's the Zoom Test Kitchen is probably what I'm, within the industry anyways, kind of best tied to as far as activity and so forth. Doesn't have its own dedicated website. It has its YouTube channel, Zoom Test Kitchen, and that's where all of our archives are. So we'll dig into that.
And you also are present on Facebook as well.
Yeah, that was actually the first first landing page, if you will, as I contemplated a couple of different names and settled on the Zoom Test Kitchen and created a Facebook private group and also a page. I don't do a bundle with the page, but the private group has grown over time on Facebook, and then just a short few months ago added the YouTube channel as I think it indexes better out there, and also archives our weekly community get-togethers as well. So it makes it a whole lot easier for people to go back to and view videos and so forth.
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
So we're going to hear from the person who is doing our questions tonight, Mr. Guy Cochran.
Hey. Well, greetings from Seattle. Thanks for having me on the panel this evening. Guy Cochran is my name, and I'm the CEO of dvestore.com. I met Jeff through office hours, I believe. We've just been bouncing ideas around, and Zoom Test Kitchen happened to be one of them. And he took the bull by the horns, and look at him now. He's managed to get some of the big industry Zoom events team members onto the show, which is super spectacular to have the support of the actual company that comes in and keeps an eye on things and helps us out. So really glad to see the show blossoming and being a resource for people like Lois and Greg, and a few of us have pounced in there to solve some problems. So it's a great testing ground to try stuff and get the hive mind together to answer some questions. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Guy. Our next G is going to be Greg Gibson. We can't hear you.
Hey guys, happy to be here. I'm going to tell just a quick little story about how I met Jeff and how Jeff and I got to be friends. And I'm going to take credit for having a role in sort of the origins of Zoom Test Kitchen. And this was way back in April or May of 2020. And, I had no experience in video production prior to COVID. And so this whole video production thing was my COVID pivot. And I was trying to figure things out, trying to learn, teach myself, how to do this stuff. And I was trying to figure out something about Zoom and integrating Zoom into vMix. And Jeff was about to go work on some big project in Tennessee or somewhere. It was like a multi-day conference, and they were going to bring Zoom in and package it up and broadcast it out, in a really, really nice production. And I can't remember exactly whether I asked Jeff a direct question or I had just posted something on Facebook. But like in my messenger, I got like this note from this guy, Jeff Widgren. I didn't know him, and I had never heard of him, other than what I'd seen, in the Facebook and the vMix Facebook group. And it was like, send me your phone number. I'm going to call you. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know this guy, but so I sent him my phone number, and sure enough, my phone rings within 5 minutes, and he's, Jeff is he's driving from Kansas City to Tennessee to work on this big project. And, he's got 8 hours in the car, and we probably spent 2 hours on the phone that day. It was the first time I had ever talked to Jeff. And as he said earlier, like he's never been known for not talking enough. So we had a really long conversation, and he shared a lot of really good information about what he was doing, and then said, look, we're going to be really busy for the next 3 or 4 days. And when this is done, I'll call you back and I'll kind of tell you how it went. And so sure enough, true to his word, Jeff called me back. And then just a few days after that, Jeff decided to get together with the people who he was working with on this production. And he actually did a little thing on Facebook about it's like a little Facebook live stream meeting about how they actually produced this program. And I think, deep down, that was kind of like that was the very basis of where we started with the Zoom Test Kitchen, and then he just kind of took it and ran with it from there.
Thank you, Greg. You went into some of my questions, so I'm gonna have to rework my questions. So, Mr. George Kennedy Jr., Mr. George E. Kennedy Jr.
It's George Kennedy from Washington, D.C., District Digital Creatives. Like everyone else here, I met Jeff through, well, linkage through office hours and then to Zoom Test Kitchen. It's really been a pleasure to really be on and, you know, really seeing the progression. Zoom is such a big part of what we're doing right now. And it's good to have one place you can go to get all the information you need. And there's so much linkage between him and the Zoom folks of itself. So, you know, it's good to have him on tonight to hear his experience and learn a little bit more about him tonight.
Thank you, George. Mr. Andy Carluccio.
Hey everybody, I'm so happy to be here with Jeff and the rest of the crew. I think Jeff and I first met on a stray Discord DM about wanting to check out Zoom OSC. So I sat on a call with them, and I was just immediately taken away with his curiosity and his excitement and his deep understanding of the Zoom platform. So when he started doing the kitchen, it was I got to admit, I kind of commandeered it for my own purposes. I'd show up and start testing my apps inside of the kitchen while the conversation was going on, so I had enough people there, and I could, you know, every now and then poke out a question about Zoom. But Jeff has always had such a deep curiosity about things. I'm excited to learn more about kind of what spurs that in him tonight. But then we went on and we did the Zoom OSC test kitchen over the spring and the summer, and I got to spend every week with a guy, and I really enjoyed it. It was a good opportunity to see how you think, and I'm excited to dig into kind of what motivates that and what drives that tonight.
Thank you, Andy. Lois? Richter,
like the earthquake scale.
All right. Thank you,
right.
Lois.
So I started when the pandemic hit and they shut down the senior center. There was an exercise group that was meeting at the senior center, and we couldn't meet in person anymore. So we decided to go use Zoom. So I had to learn how to use Zoom in order to teach everybody else how to use Zoom and get it all going. And I looked around for some place where there was a place that I could go and practice. Because, you know, if you're just one person with one screen, and you can't really do breakout rooms or whatever. And so that's how I met the Zoom Test Kitchen. And in the early days, it was, you know, coming in and going, okay, so now we want to do this. How does that work? You know, can a co-host do this? Can a participant do this? And it was a fairly straightforward, straight Zoom. And I got to admit, I came in with one computer, one screen, and very basic questions. Not that there were stupid questions, but it was just not, I don't use vMix or any of that other stuff. You know, so that's how I met Jeff. And in the past months, my goodness, it's been almost a year now. Every once in a while, I'll show up and I'll say, how does this work? And usually the guys are all talking high-tech stuff. And then I go, so can we try this out? And we go back to the basics. And it's great because the people who are there are all supportive of each other. And I am so glad to see Tony's got his conversations going. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm hoping that a lot of the other folks who have been in, through, or maybe still come to the Zoom Test Kitchen are getting what they need to support them in their new visions.
And so now we're going to hear from the doctors. We're going to start with Dr. John Edelson. And we can't hear you, Dr. Edelson.
It helps if I could unmute. You'd think I knew how to operate this technology. Anyway, I'm saying I'm failing as a university professor, so just call me John. I was thinking about when Jeff and I first met, which was early on when he was starting the Zoom Test Kitchen. I remember having a conversation, just like Greg said, we talk, professors talk a lot, and Jeff has no problem keeping up with this. and sort of joked, if you're going to get into, if you can't stand the heat, you better not go into the kitchen. And obviously Jeff was able to take the heat. Thinking back to the beginning when Zoom was focused on security, the technology was being pushed to the limit, and the early test kitchen was really the only place we could go to really try things out. And like Lois, if I had an event coming up, I planned my rehearsals and tests during the test kitchen because I knew I could get 20 people into a room and have them run through those tests. But I think back to early days, Jeff, when you and I were first talking, and then just last month, Jeff provided training for the California State Parks on how to use Zoom. He provided being an expert more than 50 miles out of the state, but did a great job. So clearly the test kitchen has helped many people, but it's also helped Jeff in that he's become a great trainer of Zoom.
Thank you, Dr. Edelson. And now, Dr. Clark.
Good evening from Tempe, Arizona. I'm thrilled to be here. After 45 years as a professor, I've learned that in a seminar, it really helps to have one student or one participant who asks the kindergarten level questions, like, why is the sky blue? And that's what I'm here to do. I hope I can ask a fundamental question or two that will help ground what have been a wonderful series of conversations, and I know tonight will be that way as well. So I'll stop there. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Clark. And I want to apologize for, I have a really good mic and there's a lot of activity going on in my house. So I just want to apologize if you guys were picking up a lot of that background noise. So I want to apologize. Now we're going to go to my first question. So my first question is, who is Jeff? Jeff, who are you?
How do you answer that? I probably shouldn't think about it from my wife's perspective in particular, because that may not come across so great. But no, I've been I've been pretty happily married for about 30 years now. Father of 3, daughter who's 25, twin sons who are 21 and in college. And for the most part, have been involved in IT for almost all of my career. It's pretty rounded experiences, and I kind of run through through that. My first dive into full time, when I mean, it's not that I didn't moonlight a lot, but when I truly went full time, when I'll say when I moonlighted, I was moonlighting a particular software package and network installs. Network installs were coax, BNC connectors, 10 meg networks at best, and terminating them. There were no hubs. I mean, there were hubs, but just not on the networks I was installing, and so a lot of things have changed since then. But I ended up going full time with that software vendor, and so my first dive into the IT industry full time was as a software developer, and I would come back to doing that again, owning the with a partner, a software development firm as well. So a number of years there, and then a number of years, I'd say, when I was with that firm, I did a lot of training for them and our product. but then I dedicated 3 solid years of my life traveling all of the U.S. and Canada as a instructor of technology, whether that was TCP/IP, that was CCNA preparation for Cisco router configs, and some of the simpler classes of Windows NT Server. I was a Microsoft certified systems engineer at one point to carry some credibility, if you will. But then I came back. I got burnt out on the road, quite honestly. I mean, 3 years on the road, 42 to 44 weeks a year. will do a person in. I don't know how you can do it. I'm not saying that's like the magic timeline, but that was my end. I had to get back home, wherever home was. And so I did that out of Los Angeles Airport. I did that out of Las Vegas Airport when we moved there. And then when I got off the road, then we moved to Kansas City, because the plan that got me off the road was to partner up and start a certification prep company. Not knowing that the industry would dilute itself in about a year of creating paper tigers, as we called them, and really demolishing the value of certifications in the Microsoft world in particular. But
And
it
Jeff,
got us here.
I'm
Yeah.
going to cut you off, and the reason why I'm
Bet.
going to cut you off is because we have a long way to go tonight, and
Ah, okay.
I want everyone who has questions about all of the technical terms that Jeff just mentioned that you didn't understand to come to the Zoom Test Kitchen on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, come to the Zoom Test Kitchen and get all your technology questions asked and worked on. And so we're going to go to my next question. So my next question is, and I really want to ask two questions, but I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask their questions. So I'm just going to go with this question. So here we go. Can you talk about your help with houses of worship?
My help?
Yes. Because I know you've helped Tony Mobley in the congregation that he was working with.
How I've helped houses of worship? Is that,
Yes.
Is that the question? So when the COVID shutdowns, all got executed, around the world and in the U.S. that affected me in particular, I was unemployed and and really had nothing to do on a regular basis, and so I had to identify. And so what I identified were a whole lot of Facebook groups that are all like house of worship related, because I identified that one, I came with a skill set of about 10 years. um, I actually called somebody in the church and said, "Hey, how long have I been doing this calling?" And they said it was just over 10 years, which is unheard of in our church to be that long of a call. But it's kind of hard to replace. It's a role that, it's kind of hard to replace in the sense, and I don't say that proudly in the sense, because sometimes it's pretty difficult. But needless to say, I came with those skills, and I thought, I can go share everything I've learned and struggled with, over the last 10 years with houses of worship and some businesses, because the mad scramble was, right, how do we, have remote meetings? How do we, especially when it came to, pastors out there that were, really stressing over how do they reach their congregation and their members and so forth. And so I spent a lot of time, on Zooms, walking people through, talking them through, sending those blind invitations like Greg described on his description. They had no idea who I was, and I was always super careful about how. I mean, it wasn't that I was hunting people to send them an invite. I was reading a ton of posts on Facebook, and there were just, some that struck me. Whether it was the voice, the tone, the stress, whatever, I don't know. There were just certain ones that stood out that I felt like I needed to, reach out and offer my time and skills and so forth. And and not everybody is responsive, but that's really where it got started with House of Worship. Um, and I'm still involved with, several of those organizations and in my own naturally. Our church, surprisingly enough, didn't leverage and have the need to broadcast every single week the way a lot of other churches do. And so I didn't have a lot to do for my own, but I had a little bit, but I gave that there. But now that it's become a hybrid event, if you will, some people will and can come to church, some people still can't or won't. Now I'm really busy with my own house of worship as well. And so the big change was I used to broadcast to like 8 different chapels. Now I'm broadcasting to almost 4,500 members when we broadcast. And so it really changed as far as the support, and really, quite honestly, the meaning and the purpose of what I'm doing just felt so much larger and more meaningful. Like, I myself sitting at that vMix console can cut off a meaningful message just like that to more people out remotely than there are inside the chapel itself that I'm sitting next to, and so it became very meaningful as well. So yeah, it's pretty close to my heart as far as purposeful messaging, and it's not about the high production factor. I mean, I like things to look good, but there's this point, there's this threshold, to me anyways, that says if I do my job right, no one will even know I'm doing it right. And that is because I've minimized and eliminated as many distractions as possible from the spirit of the message, so that they can just simply receive the message that's being delivered. And I've seen it all. I mean, I've seen, simple single camera, broadcasts, all the way to these. I mean, right down the street, we have this mega church, and they've got an unbelievable production, and I'm just like, it's one of those things. It's, it's, yeah, I don't know. What I'm really trying to say, there's all kinds of different approaches to it, and I coached part of that, but I mostly coached the tech. So it's been a whole lot of fun getting to know a whole lot of people. Literally, I never really knew, but I literally have just gotten to know so many people from all over the world, and it's just fascinating to me. So.
Well, Jeff, I want to say thank you so much. I know that in my particular need case, you did help the congregation that I was working with, and you allowed me to try some things out in Zoom Test Kitchen that I was able to take back to the congregation, and it worked extremely well. So I want to thank you for the platform of Zoom Test Kitchen to be able to test and figure out things that can help regular, ordinary people be able to do their worship. So thank you,
Yeah.
Jeff, so much for that.
Yeah, my absolute
Um,
pleasure.
Thank you again, Jeff, for that. Guy, do we have some questions?
Yeah, we got a couple building up here. First one's coming in from Andy Carluccio in Washington, D.C. here on the panel. And he says, of everything Jeff has learned since COVID, what has been the most surprising or exciting?
Oh my goodness. I didn't even see that till you started reading that. Otherwise, I would have thought about it longer. Um, oh man, the most surprising and exciting. I I don't know that it's I don't know that I'll say it's exciting, yes. Surprising, probably not. And that is, I've been in IT for a long time, like I explained, and technology has always. Well, I mean, I've always lived off of the energy, and I'm fed by, and I think I feed it pretty good. The energy of technology and problems and solutions that it can provide and solve. And so it doesn't surprise me, but it's super exciting in a sense. I mean, Andy and his company at Liminal, it is super exciting to see the development. I mean, the pace of development that's really still going on at a tremendous rate to be able to do what we do, and there's just so many vendors that have been focusing on remote everything, remote connectivity, remote management, in our world of broadcast, remote switching and audio consoles, and Andy's demo of remotely managing a soundboard, a X32 Behringer that was Victor's, and we could see the mechanical faders move up and down while we're watching Andy, on the Surface controller move his. It's just fascinating that there's been so many advancements and things we could talk about that, office hours and the folks in that community and so forth are involved with is absolutely, just thrilling. I mean, I wish there was, 2 to 3 times the number of hours in a day to be able to be involved, more involved in all the things that are going on out there. But the fact of the matter is number one, priority is being the patriarch and provider of my home, and so the income is number one, and and then after that is really kind of perfecting what I deliver, and then community and friends and technology and so forth. So it's hard to fit it all in, but I think the pace and the development of the tech itself is really been impressive.
Yeah, I okay. I'm gonna let Greg go ahead. Go ahead, Greg.
Thanks, Tony. I mean, I don't want to speak for Jeff, but I think, to me, one of the most exciting things that's happened with Test Kitchen over time is, like, initially it was just sort of a small group of people that everybody kind of knew each other, and then it kind of like snowballed, and there's a real sense of community. There's a set of regulars, and a lot of them are right here on this panel. And the funny thing is like, I've never met anybody on this panel in person, but I feel like I know them like my neighbors. And so it started off kind of like that, and then it just sort of snowballed. And now, it's on the radar at Zoom. So there's people from Zoom that are watching the show. And I think probably, the culmination and a highlight, I think, of the Test Kitchen was a couple weeks ago when Sam Kakaiko from the Zoom events team came on and really gave a detailed breakdown of the brand new Zoom events conference platform and gave us kind of a sneak peek of the back door. To me, like, the fact that we're getting, like, the Test Kitchen has gained that level of credibility where Zoom is really putting top people out in front of us now is really exciting.
Absolutely. And I go ahead, John. And then Greg.
I was going to follow up.
I'm sorry,
on
then
that.
George.
With Greg. We knew each other because we appeared on office hours, but we really didn't know each other, how they thought worked and what they were doing. And it was, this club that we met in the Test Kitchen. And then it was through Mike seeing what Craig was doing and learning there was a beta test with NDI and suggesting he do that. And then he brings those into the Test Kitchen, and those tests and feedback makes his way back to Zoom. It's pretty amazing that this organic group appeared and now has become an organization that I expect regularly to catch up with. And I'm not sure what I would do if it went away, because it's my my peeps, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Greg. Let George, and then we'll come back to Greg.
So, Jeff, I think you hit it on nail on the head, because it's definitely, I've been having this little struggle for the past week because now I'm back in kind of work mode and I'm not able to be on office hours or be in after hours. I mean, I think what it's done for all of us, though, and we'll figure it out. It's an adjustment we have to make now, but we'll figure it out how we're going to fit ourselves back into whether it's office hours every other day or after hours. I think what's been so great, and it happened today again, where we were on office hours in the morning, and then suddenly at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was like a ton of folks in after hours just working. And we're learning about this one thing we just heard about this morning, and we just harnessing this great power as a collective. I think a lot of us don't want to get away from that right now, because it's been so great for us over the past couple of months. And I think we're going to figure out a way how to get back to that. But as you said, we got to take care of family first now. You know, we're getting back to that. But a lot of us don't want to let this go. And we have to figure out a way to keep that going.
Yeah,
Greg.
true.
Yeah, I mean,
Greg, go
I
ahead.
was just going to come back and kind of reinforce what John was talking about. You know, like early on, when we were trying to figure out production techniques using Zoom and how to make Zoom a better experience for end users, there really wasn't a way to test those features at scale. You know, like if you needed to figure out how to move, 30 people into breakout rooms or 100 people into breakout rooms, there was no way. I've got like 6 machines around me here in my, in my little mothership, as I call it. But, if I needed to figure out how to move a mass of people into different breakout rooms, there was no way to do it. And so, those were kind of the exciting things that we were doing early on in Test Kitchen. And I remember, another thing that was really helpful for me was figuring out how to route audio from one Zoom meeting to another, so that I could have my speakers and panelists in one meeting and have my audience in another webinar, and trying to figure out how to route the audio. And I remember also too, when we started to integrate Zoom Rooms prior to NDI, just being able to screen scrape Zoom Rooms, because we could, with Zoom Rooms, you had 3 screens. So you could screen capture theoretically, you could screen capture 3 screens. But the problem was, like, and this is one of the things that I did early on. I spent a lot of time trying to test this, and actually figured it out in Test Kitchen. Was in a Zoom room, if somebody's talking, if you have all 3 of the screens pinned, you get this little graphic at the top that says Tony Mobley is talking. And we couldn't figure out, like, what's causing that. How, where's it coming from? And it turns out it was coming from unpinned speakers. And so the way the Zoom room works is that it had to be, it was made for conference rooms. So if somebody who wasn't pinned on the screen was talking, the other people in the room needed to be able to know who was talking. So what we figured out, we had to keep one of the screens in the gallery view. And if we kept one of the screens in the gallery view, if somebody that wasn't pinned started talking, you didn't get that graphic. And so, like, those are some of the small things, that we did early on. But, like John was saying, when Room NDI came out, that was the first place I went to test it. And that was pretty exciting time for all of us in production when Room NDI came out.
And I'm gonna jump in and say, and if you want to know more, guess what? You go to Zoom Test Kitchen on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can ask more questions about what Greg is talking about, because there are probably people who are listening who don't understand what he's talking about. But I can tell you, as a novice, as far as video production is concerned, it is a great place to learn how to implement some of these video production tools. And it is extremely relaxing, no pressure opportunity for you to figure things out. And so we're going to go to the next question.
Tony, can I just follow up just with what you're saying there, just really quickly? You're right on the money. I mean, I'm talking about a lot of technical terms here that the average Zoom user doesn't understand. But as Lois said earlier, it is a real mix of people. There are people who are production professionals that are in Test Kitchen, but there are also people who are just casual users. And it is a real interesting mix of folks in there. And so it doesn't always have to be super technical and high level production stuff. It's a good place too to just come for a novice user to come and learn good Zoom techniques.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go ahead, Lois.
So Tony, you tell everybody to go to the Zoom Test Kitchen, but you don't tell them how to get there. How do they get to the Zoom Test Kitchen?
You're absolutely right. So do you want me to tell, Jeff, or do you want to tell?
Oh, I'll share it, because I have just a touch to add to it even. And that is, I, for many, many months have often contemplate, when you say go to the Zoom Test Kitchen, what do people interpret that as? Like, is that a Facebook group? Is that a YouTube channel? It's both, but it's the community, and it really is a Zoom meeting, so it's a Zoom meeting where we all gather. And so I will say the best way to get started is to go to Facebook and just search for not the Zoom, but Zoom Test Kitchen, those 3 words, and go to the group. It's a private group, and just tell it that click on join and answer 2 or 3 questions, and we'll approve you and get you in there. And the reason that's the best place to start is that's where I originate all the event invitations and so forth. So you'll get alerts there. If you get alerts on the subscription from the YouTube channel, it might be a live alert that we're live, because we do stream those meetings to our YouTube channel and also Facebook, but sometimes it's after the fact. We'd rather have you come join us if you can, but yeah, appreciate that, Lois. It is it's a great place to be, and the Facebook group itself has a lot of postings, right? A lot of questions, a lot of sharing of information, and so forth as well. So even though you're not in the when we say in the test kitchen, that's the actual meeting that happens on Friday afternoons at 3 Eastern, but the group itself is just a wealth of information as well.
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
And so I'm going to do a little shift. So I'm going to interrupt guys doing the question and pose another question for Jeff. So what lessons have you learned from your parents that you're using today?
Oh, goodness sakes. Oh, let's think about that. God, talk about, I should have had some questions to me ahead of time as I think them through, but I think on the fly has its value too. First thing I think is, my dad's been gone for, a while now, but my mom still lives, and it I was definitely brought up, having to learn how to appreciate working hard, and so that has never really challenged me. My dad, although he wasn't a technologist most of his life, he actually was a I don't know how to describe him. He often almost always owned his own businesses. They were fiberglass manufacturing businesses, and I saw bathtubs and showers and boats and police motorcycle fairings and dune buggies, and then these 3D models. If you've ever seen a 30-foot Paul Bunyan standing up by a golf course or whatnot, my dad probably built that mold and that structure. I mean, he has some incredible creations, but eventually he got out of that business and started working for Control Data Corporation out of Omaha, and also Digital Equipment Corporation in Colorado Springs. And so that actually got me introduced to technology to a degree, not real heavily, but got a computer in the house and really caught my attention, and it helped me realize that I'm a logical thinker, and I've always, for a long time anyways, considered myself a really, really effective troubleshooter. Um, and being able to, and it's not the knowledge, it's the process of being able to troubleshoot and understand, logically this step actually will contribute. It's kind of that 50-50-50 till you get down to where the problem is. Whether you know how to fix that problem or not, you can identify it, and that my dad taught me a lot as well. So I guess working working hard, but I can't let it go without saying is, what goes around comes around. That definitely, came from home, in being able to understand the value of giving, and that's, I mean, it's not, quite honestly, it's not the reason I started the Zoom Test Kitchen, was to just give, but there's a certain amount of fuel that is inside of me that has to be replenished, and it is replenished by serving, and providing and giving and sharing and so forth. And I'll say, selfishly, every Friday afternoon, I get to experience that, getting to know people who come into the kitchen that I've just never known. I mean, I'm thinking I probably know the very best in this panel would be probably Greg Gibson. We, had our earliest conversations and have stayed in touch ever since. And Guy Cochran, if you really want to know where the Zoom Test Kitchen comes from, it's Guy Cochran, because it's the platform that he has so generously provided to us as far as the licensing and the high definition and the whole bit. And so he had some faith in what we were doing really early on. And then Andy Carluccio, bringing having the faith that it's a community. I didn't know Andy very well. I was super excited about his products, but I didn't know him as an individual very well at all. I knew he didn't sleep. That's for sure. He was always going, always. I'm like, holy moly, you're making me tired just watching you, man. But and he just turned things out, and they were so relative. But really to have the trust that his new inventions and creations would be properly presented and supported and so forth in the community of the Zoom Test Kitchen, Zoom OSC Test Kitchen. So, it's just been fascinating. Chris Clark's on this panel. He's probably, I'll go to the opposite end of that. I don't know Chris Clark. Chris and I have never had a conversation, but I feel like I know him, because little does he know, I've been watching and listening to Chris and others on Saturdays for a long time, and have learned just a bundle, and so he does feel like a connection. And I think that's what's so fascinating about this industry. I feel really, really lucky that I fell into the production space when I did. And I've asked some people about this, and I think I entered, I don't want to just say cleanly like it was a black and white thing, but when this industry got really friendly, which was early 2020, really created community and these meeting places, and people got out of this, these protective membranes and keeping, secrets from one another because it was competitive and so forth. All those walls, so many of those walls, have been broken down, and we're just in it together. I mean, there are a lot of one-man bands out there, but not one of us feels like we're a one-man band because of the network of folks and talents and skills that we have just immediate access to. So absolutely love what we're doing. Yeah, Chris.
Go ahead, George.
I just want to say real quickly, and I know you guys hear it all the time, Guy and Andy, I don't know, and I've been in this industry for over 20 some, almost, I don't want to say 30, but going on 20 something years. I don't know too many CEOs or head chiefs of companies that are hanging out with a group of folks constantly. Andy, I know it's been the better for you as a person and your company of itself. Guy, obviously the same thing for you also. I know for you it's not about sales. You genuinely helping people by putting out products and going the extra length to find products for folks to get done. I mean, I look at us on this panel right now and the way we look, and this comes from office hours, and it's just transcending over to everything we do on a daily basis. We're using a different tech tonight, but we, across the board, whether we're going from Zoom to other platforms, we all look good. But I just want to give kudos to the both of you. I know we're here for Jeff, but I want you guys to know, every time I see you and I'm on a panel, I'm gonna let everyone know that you are great contributors to this industry at this juncture for the past couple of months.
Yeah.
Thank you, George. Go ahead, Dr. Clark.
I just wanted to say to Jeff that it's possible that I'm in the wrong meeting.
Well, I'm going to say, Dr. Clark, you are not in the wrong meeting. You're always welcome on Conversations with Tony Mobley. And I just want to add to what George and I think about Conversation with Tony Mobley has its origins in the same way that Zoom Test Kitchen does, because it is the support of Guy Cochran who made it first possible for me to have my initial conversation. had it not been for Guy, then that it probably would not have happened. And I've had a lot of support from Andy, as well as actually everyone on this panel has helped me in some form or fashion, even just the conversation that Lois and I have had in the Zoom test kitchen and offline as well. And so but tonight is really about getting to know who Jeff is and the things that inspired him to create Zoom Test Kitchen. So he is not actually having Zoom OSC active right now, but it's on a as needed basis. But I think it's important to mention it. And the reason why I want to mention it is because Zoom Test Kitchen was such a fertile ground for the things in which we were all trying to figure out. We had to create, or Jeff, I'm taking ownership of Zoom OSC.
Hey, you get it.
So because the ground was so fertile for Zoom test in Zoom Test Kitchen, there was a need to have a separate Zoom OSC that was on Thursdays. But what happened was everybody got so busy with work and creation that we had to let the Thursday go to go back to just having the Zoom Test Kitchen on Fridays. But it's a good thing. And I'm going to let Andy speak to that. And then Greg, I think you had your hand up. So we'll let Andy speak and then we can go back to Greg.
Yeah, I just want to underscore the importance of, like, I looked at the test kitchen when we were sort of trying to evaluate how we wanted to engage with our user community and new users. And there's a lot of different places we can go, right? We could host our own thing. We could show up and do a lot of press tours. We could do all that stuff. But the truth of the matter, it goes right back to what you said, Tony, which was fertile ground. And it's really, Jeff is the one who is tilling, right? Like he's going out there and he's turning it, and he creates a community that invests into itself. And, I want to learn more as we get through the questions about like what drives that curiosity to identify behavior and those sort of things. But it really, it was such a thorough place. It felt like such a natural place to want to be. It's like, I don't want to be engaging in like an advertising sort of way or doing a bunch of press releases or things like that. No, I want to be hands-on with Jeff prodding. And I'll tell you, the thing about Jeff that I loved so much about doing these kitchens was that he's a super thorough guy. Like nothing gets past him. Like, if you got a rough edge, like we're going to talk about that. He really thinks critically because he's doing it, and he's really embracing this new media philosophy of investing it back in the community to kind of, again, reap what you sow. And I think that's just a beautiful tie-in between everything that you've talked about, Jeff, about your family history, your philosophy of work, and all of that. So it was a no-brainer to want to be involved in the kitchen and to continue to want to do so, because it's the right type of mentality for this moment where we need to be hands-on and thorough, but also in it together. And I think you've done a really great job at fostering that community.
Absolutely. Greg, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna, a couple things. So Jeff originally said, the folks on the panel probably knows me the best. Again, I just want to reiterate that I've never met Jeff in person. That it's totally, an online friendship. But I talk to Jeff on the phone probably twice a week at least. And if I ever run into a problem, he's one of the first people I call when it has to do with Zoom. Going back to Zoom OSC though, like Zoom OSC Test Kitchen, I mean, that was a must-have at the time, because where else were you going to be able to learn how to use that software? Because again, going back to what I said about scale, I mean, if you're trying to like multi-pin, multi-spot, unmute automatically using commands on a Stream Deck or whatever your, whatever your controller was, I mean, where were you going to be able to do that at scale? It was really like a must-needed, like a must-have kind of thing. And then to Andy's credit, going back to what George said, I mean, where else can you go and have the guy that's writing the freaking code holding your hand, telling you what you're doing wrong? So, I mean, we are blessed to have a guy like Andy involved in our community to the degree that he is, to be able to hold our hands and help us wade through and navigate, this really nice piece of software that he's created for us to use.
Thank you, Greg. And I'm going to take a quick break right now and just do a call out. So I am doing a actual call out to everyone who is listening and who might come back and watch the rebroadcast of this. Go to the Zoom Test Kitchen on Facebook. Sign up, join the group so that you can come and learn and practice and work in the Zoom Test Kitchen. I guarantee you will not be sorry. This is a call out for all of those who have an interest in learning something about video production. And we learn about other things as well, but the Zoom Test Kitchen is worthy of trying to participate in this meaningful learning lab. It is a real virtual learning lab. You will not be sorry. And now we're going to go back to Guy for the next questions.
I keep wanting to have a graphic with a stinger that pops up that just says "Visit Zoom Test Kitchen." You get like a whoosh.
That's right.
So for the guys in the back with the production, we whip that up real quick. Visit zoomtestkitchen.com. All right, second question's coming up from Chris Clark in Tempe, Arizona, and he says, "Often a new venture like Z Test Kitchen seems straightforward at the beginning, but soon gets more complicated. Did you have that experience? If so, tell us a story or two."
Yeah, you nailed it, Chris. I mean, literally, my mind was selfishly saying, "Hey, I need a place to practice." Lois described it earlier too. As you need a place to be able to go where there's going to be people there, and all I did really at the beginning was translate that to, let me tell some people I know about a consistent schedule, right? To help kind of build that. And that was it. I'm telling you, I had no intention on being a teacher. I love to teach. I have years of not, formally certifiably, being a teacher, but I've always enjoyed, instructing. But that had absolutely nothing to do with why I created the time slot, if you will, of the Zoom Test Kitchen. On day one, the very first time we ever met, I felt like I was the unprepared instructor with a whole room full of students who came for me to teach them. And I wasn't prepared for that at all. And Guy reminded me of it. He's been a great coach, business coach, person coach. He really has provided some, just great hints and points of encouragement and so forth. But that's probably the biggest one. I mean, it's hard to be an instructor every week when you've fired up a business, to create revenue and learn how. My biggest struggle is, business development. I mean, the technical part of it isn't, particularly, it's not a stressful challenge for me. It's just, a time investment and practice and so forth. But and we used to do the Zoom Test Kitchen Tuesdays and Fridays. Then we added Zoom OSC Test Kitchen, and we did Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And so I created Tuesdays for the folks overseas, because we actually did that at a different time, so that those that were 6 to 8 hours ahead of the U.S. Could participate. I mean, I know of one person in particular out of Israel who can't attend the Zoom Test Kitchen because it's on Fridays and it's on their Sabbath and so forth. And it's unfortunate, but it's Denise, and we're decent remote friends and have a great connection. But but I know that she can't. It kind of pains me because she runs a successful business and all that. But yeah, Chris, you asked a great question in the sense that was absolutely my reality. I wasn't planning on being, and I still don't open the kitchen. I come to the kitchen with probably 3 bullet points topically, whether they're new features or something I ran into in a production this week, whether it was a success or a challenge or whatnot, kind of in my back pocket, so that if it's that quiet time, because it really kind of first and foremost is, hey everybody, how are you, who's got a success or a challenge or something they want to test. That's really the way we kick off the test kitchen. It's really about the whole group. It's not about me being the leader of the kitchen. All I do is start the meeting for the most part. Feeling like I'm sitting in front of the classroom without a shadow of a doubt has caused me, when I was on the road teaching Windows NT server to pretty big company network admins years ago, I stressed. I mean, I stress to build credibility, and so I experience the same thing in the Zoom test kitchen. Is I'm pressed always to dig and read and listen, because there's plenty of people out there who know more than me about Zoom or pieces of, right. I mean, there's just so many things. I think what I stand the most proud of in the kitchen is that we we uncover, I think, a lot of undocumented behaviors inside of Zoom. I mean, Lois can attest to some of the testing we did last Friday. I mean, testing, bouncing out to a breakout room, coming back, bouncing out, coming back, for local recording, which is the only way you can record a breakout room. And it's great stuff. You can't read a document about that. And they can only document so much. And I'm not poking at Zoom at all. It's just, you can only write so many, scenarios.
And more on Fridays in the Zoom test kitchen.
I told
Go
you I
ahead.
talk a lot.
Go ahead, Greg, and then Dr. Clark.
I think when Jeff started Zoom Test Kitchen, I think the idea was we were just all going to it was kind of like, hey, let's all get together, a couple afternoons a week and let's play around in Zoom for an hour. And the funny thing is like we get on there and then like 4 hours later, we were still going, we missed dinner and spouses are angry with us. And, so I think it was just kind of like, hey, let's get on and play around a little bit. And then it then it became a lot more complicated and Jeff had to start coming in with an agenda.
Yeah.
Dr. Clark and then Dr. Edelson.
Greg, my wish for you is that you move toward having just one bullet point up your sleeve.
Okay. Dr. Edelson.
Well, thinking of what's probably I found the useful in the test kitchen was, there were some issues with Zoom security. We had Zoom bombing, and there were all these security features and activities that you could do if you had a problem on a Zoom account. But it was hard to practice those things, particularly if you dump somebody out of your meeting. So there were a number of people who came to the test kitchen saying, you want to practice what it's like if there's a problem, figuring out how to mute people, how to lock a meeting. And this was really the only place where you could do it. If you did it, like one of our groups did it, they actually said, we're going to do a drill. And then they managed to throw a person completely off the account and took days for them to be able to get back into meetings. So
that's right.
I believe John Test Kitchen has some experience with the Zoom bombing.
I think we've all learned that. But
Yeah.
What's interesting is how compressed this COVID event has made time happen. I look at this panel. These are people I think I've known for years. That I realized that it wasn't years. It was, I remember the first time I met Andy, and it's sort of like the first time I met kids I went back to college with. I feel like we've had this compressed event of solving problems, learning new things, and yeah, I look at this panel. They're a bunch of friends that I didn't know a year and a half ago.
Go ahead, Lois.
So I am very, very grateful that Jeff started the Zoom Test Kitchen. I think it's a wonderful thing. I hope everybody comes and joins us. But I'm even more grateful for the people who show up. And I know Jeff can talk about anything, but I like the fact that he sits back, and if I ask a question about doing this particular thing in this way, and say, is anybody else in the room had that experience? Someone will pop up and say, well, this is what happened to me, and this is how I handled it. And somebody else will go, well, try this thing, and then there'll be that link in the chat. And it's not the teacher telling us what we're supposed to know. It's actually a collective experiment. And I really, really appreciate that. I know sometimes there is an agenda, there's a speaker, there's a particular focus, but always there's still time. Even if we have one of those big speakers, there's still time at the end for somebody to ask a question.
To figure stuff out. Thank you, Lois. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'd have to say it almost feels like one of those homebrew clubs. I wasn't there in the 80s or 70s when Apple was forming, but it almost feels like early Silicon Valley around in the kitchen sometimes, where we're just shaking things up, trying new things, because some of this stuff has never ever been done before. You know, just like that. Can you record in a breakout room? I was there for that one with Lois, and the amount of patience that Jeff has, I got to hand it to him. I mean, usually I'm like, come on, let's go. And Jeff's just like helping anybody out and making sure that their problem gets solved. So I got to hand it to him that he's got an incredible gift of patience to be able to help people and really make the kitchen a success by making sure no questions left behind.
And I just want to add to that, with the Zoom Test Kitchen, there are no stupid questions. It is a place where you can be free to ask a question that you just don't know. And it's okay. Jeff makes it okay for you to ask that question that you don't know. And we're getting low on time, so we're going to start pushing the questions, guys. So what's the next question, Guy?
Next one's coming in from Andy Carluccio in Washington, D.C. And he says, can Jeff share about the importance of curiosity in his line of work? Why is it important to identify behavior?
The importance of curiosity to me meant I was going to be employed tomorrow or not. You know, I mean, because I've been in technology, I've had, several interviews in life for maybe a role or the next role, or if I'm the one doing the interview for a new sales engineer that's coming on board or whatnot. To transition from being a sales engineer for a storage company, an enterprise storage vendor versus Cisco, which is primarily, routers and switches and so forth, is not at all unusual for those who succeed in our space. And that's because it's easy to readapt to different technology or different platform or whatnot because of that fierce curiosity and ability to really you've talked around it for so long, I guess, from one product perspective. Now you're just engaged in it. The harder part as in my life has always been finding what I call a socially palatable engineer, somebody techie enough to actually, without embarrassment, put in front of a C-level. And that combination's really, been challenging, but also somebody who's, really never satisfied with the depth of their knowledge, the clarity of the technology itself, all the way to undocumented behaviors, right? And really just hammering it down. Yeah, I mean, back in the day when, it wasn't an online world, I always had these, 3 to 4 inch manuals that were sitting on my nightstand that I'd read, and they'd put me to sleep most nights. That's how exciting they are. But you just have to, dig, and so no, I appreciate it. It says, why is it important to identify the behavior? Yeah, it, I have not had, have a brother who wanted to get into the IT industry, and it was one of the biggest challenges. I think as siblings, we're always a little rougher on one another, but I guess I've understood, my hard study, I guess, and I expected to see that from him. And he's in the industry successfully. He's good at what he does, but that extra gumption. He was a person in IT who worked a lot more like a county worker, if you will. Just satisfied with the 8 to 5 IT production. I mean, that's why I get along with the space so well is I don't know. I mean, you talk about boring, tell me to wake up and show up at 8 o'clock and leave at 5. I mean, that just bores the tears out of me, almost no matter the content, it's just, I want to constantly, learn, and keeps my mind fresh. I feel like if I'm not digging in and learning something, trying something, testing something, that my brain's just going to die. And I don't want that to happen either. But, and in the last year and a half, quite honestly, I thought about this earlier while Andy was talking. We've all been under the gun, a lot of new tech, huge need, right? And there's been this need for like time to market, not for the sell as much as the solution. And so I just feel like, if when I can contribute to helping, myself and others, get to market with either a new skill or knowledge or event or whatever the case is Andy could have created what he created, maybe, I mean, he probably couldn't have, but only because, some dependencies and so forth, kind of technically speaking. But if he were to, like any vendor, create something under normal circumstances, the pace of the market adoption would have been so much different than what it has been. I'm guessing over the last 18 months or so, because the pressure's high, the demand is incredible, and so it. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know Andy's numbers. Hopefully, they're good and they continue to grow and so forth. But I think it's hard to grow fast, even when you have high demand, if you don't have a place to do it and learn it, and kind of hammer on it a bit.
A crucible for invention.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing you say. Yeah. That's it. Next question.
Next one's coming in from Talalik Lopez Waterman in Astoria, New York. And he says, what is the biggest thing you have learned from the test kitchen?
That you can do it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I knew this before. It wasn't a surprise learn, but I think probably the most important part to me from the test kitchen is that I just love people. I love hanging with people and sharing and digging in, and and there's a lot of folks. I mean, Lois. I mean, little do people that might watch this now or back later, she's just been just incredibly impressive. She's by far one of my best what if people in the kitchen. What if we do this? What if we do that? What about when we do that? I mean, sometimes it can challenge my patience at times, but the results are, it wouldn't matter who it was coming from. Just the results of it have been just like incredibly satisfying for really kind of everybody involved, because we all walk away, better folks at that. And I'm being in the test kitchen really too, it's not like huge. I think we're going on like 900 members. Our formal registrations in Zoom are nearing the 400 mark. It's not super huge, but at the same time, it is definitely and has been from day one worldwide. Different cultures, different languages, the whole bit, and that to me has been. I mean, so many times, like, I don't go out of my studio here at home and say hi to my family again and tell them what we studied. I tell them who I met from Israel or Australia, or and it's just that part of these worldwide friendships. I mean, there's not anybody on this panel tonight that I've ever shook their hand, right? I mean, and I think most of us are, kind of there. I think the city to go to is Washington, D.C., because I could shake 3 hands all in one
Come on
swipe.
out. Yeah. You got
I
3
know,
places to
right?
stay. Yeah.
But at the same time, I love the West Coast, and Monterey is incredible. I mean, there's just great people. I mean, really, the
You have a
people
standing
drive me.
invitation for a test kitchen out of the Monterey kitchen.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'd be up for a live test kitchen in Monterey in the Edelson studio.
Yeah, no question.
Go ahead, George.
So Jeff, I'm just curious because you mentioned you love people, and so what is the experience? I went back last week and I did an AWS show, and it was the first time I got to see the whole DC ecosystem, like the crew from DC, and it's vast. So you said you love people. What's the experience virtually versus the physical? How have you experienced those two? I know we've been 18 months in the virtual, but what do you think about the two different, the virtual and the physical?
Well, so quite honestly, in this industry, I don't have that comparison because I started in, early into first quarter of 2020. And so I don't have that physical experience with people in this industry. I have it in the IT world, and, I can say I probably have full appreciation, like I've reached. I don't feel like I'm missing anything in the Zoom test kitchen and this production space because it's virtual. I don't feel like I'm lacking anything, but I think what backs that, like what's behind that, is because I'm not being graded, scored, or judged on what I'm hosting and what I'm, contributing. I'm as much a contributor as anybody else. Professionally, when I'm out there, I've worked for Dell and Citrix and several other, IT Silicon Valley based companies. And Dell's not Silicon Valley, but anyways, they're in their own world down there in Texas. But anyways, when you're being graded and scored, you need all the advantages, say we even call them unfair advantages, possible. And that being in person is a huge, I mean, if you want to compete with, a provider where a customer's calling out to you and you'll only meet virtually versus the person who will meet in person, I think the person who will meet in person and meet the protocols and wishes of today's, COVID protocols and so forth, I think you'll always have an unfair advantage if you have that disparity between the two potential providers that are being evaluated, because there's just so much, human behavior that's super important. I mean, even being able to read, there's I mean, every one of you on this panel could be banging away on your phone right now and I wouldn't know it. Where if I'm in a conference room, I know it, right? And you don't call, in the sales engineering world, we don't call people out on it. We just bring up a new point, or we reinforce the message. It's a little harder for sure. If I was really being evaluated hard, there's visual learners, there's audible learners, I mean, there's let's do by example, or there's others who just want the documentation and they can go do it themselves, and they don't have the patience, to sit in a workshop and have to deal with the time it takes to serve everybody in there versus just themselves. So
let me just add real quick. I think what's most amazing, I'm still amazed every single day, and that's not a lie. Today, I've been using Macs for a long time. I don't mess with terminal. I did not know that terminal is used sometimes to launch apps. And today with SPX, that's the way you have to launch the app on. The guy in London showed me how to use Terminal. He's like, stop the press. It's George's time. I'm going to show him how to get this launch. And within 5 minutes, I was up and running. I mean, I can't get that in the real world. You know, there was 100 folks, let's say, in after hours, but Leo said, okay, it's George's time. And that was done within 5 minutes. I was up and running. And so was a lot of other folks on the after hours panel were able to get up and running. So you can't get it in the real world.
And that's the kind of enthusiasm that you get to experience in after hours as well as the Zoom test kitchen. And so again, I'm doing a call out. If you are interested in trying to figure stuff out, Zoom test kitchen is one of the places to go. And then of course, office hours, after hours is another place to go. And all of these communities work hand in hand. But tonight we're really talking about Zoom test kitchen. And I encourage you again, and I know I sound redundant, but I'm going to keep talking about it because it's important that you get the message that if you are in technology, video production, and you want to figure something out, it is very fertile ground, and come and play. And we're going to go to the next question. We're getting low on time. We have about 8 minutes left, and Lois has to celebrate her husband's birthday, so we need to get going. So go ahead, Guy.
All right, next one's coming in from Dan Huber in Erie, Pennsylvania, and he says, Zoom Test Kitchen is like a live lab. What have been some of the most memorable experiences?
Oh my goodness. The finds that we have found, I think probably, I mean, I just killed this topic after it happened, and Greg had mentioned it earlier. The Zoom test kitchen, we got Zoom bombed, and we got Zoom bombed bad. And you know, there was, I mean, Lois was there. Who else was there?
I was going to
Anybody
say,
here on the
was there
panel?
anything more exciting? Is there anything more memorable than the Zoom
I
bomber?
mean, you know, the video that was playing was so inappropriate, and the language, and it wasn't just a person. It's easy to identify and kick a person out. They had 5 people show up at the same time, and they bombarded us, and it was ugly. But what I mean, I lost sleep over that one. I was just freaking embarrassed beyond belief because it was on me. It was my own fault. I got way too relaxed, and you know, I kind of call people out when I do freelance work and a company, whoever they may be, if it's, you know, they're giving me host of their account. You know, if they stick around and they want my advice, I'll give it to them, because, you know, there's way too many people who their default settings are to share screen. Their default settings are to have the waiting room off. I mean, all those things I did to really invite this, let alone, and I haven't changed this, by the way, I advertise to the world the Zoom Test Kitchen every Friday. And this is Guy's recommendation as well. Hey, it's just too hard for people to get there. And I'm like, you're telling me. I mean, I'm answering emails every week of how do I get to the test kitchen? He says, just publish the meeting ID and the password. And I'm like, God, that just sounds absurd. But and I wasn't about to change that, because it had been out there, and it's, you know, it's always been the same link for, you know, since we started that recurring schedule. It's been a long time. I said, well, staying publicly advertised, you know, on public groups, private groups, wherever. And when they arrive, how do I learn how to best secure a meeting? And and we probably spent, Ed Willett gives me trouble about this all the time. He wouldn't come because I was still talking about it. I mean, detail by detail, like 3 weeks after. But it's gotten into some really good habits, you know, really good habits of you know, keeping your system locked down and so forth. And it's not that people can't get in, but you know, you got new protocols and practices, and you have new roles called bouncers. And you know, when I invite somebody to help me manage the waiting room while I'm managing the test kitchen itself as a program, I asked them to don't just admit all, admit one at a time and follow them in. And if they happen to turn on their video camera with something appropriate, boot them. Just that simple. We had Zoom showed up for the third time, I think. The second time Sam showed up, third time Zoom showed up in the test kitchen. There was somebody who was in the waiting room named Jeff Widgren. Like, if you don't even want to get through the waiting room, come show up with my name, because, first thing was, hey, they asked me over on the comms, hey, are you trying to get in with another machine, which is not unusual. And I said, absolutely not. And so they never got in because they just came in with a fake name. And, not a bad strategy if I was wanting to be a Zoom bomber, right? Come in as a recognizable name, but it backfired and so forth.
And
But,
I'm gonna cut you off, Jeff.
yeah.
So
No, I'm good with that.
and listen, I had the opportunity to participate in the follow-up after that happened. And I can tell you that you want to come to the Zoom test kitchen. And at the end of the conversation, before it gets ready to end, then you want to ask Jeff about that, because he will go into a thorough explanation of the things that he has put in place to protect that fertile ground for the work that's being done. And I'm going to say, Lois, I'm going to let you go, but real quick.
And because of that activity in the Zoom test kitchen, I was able to create a short video and give training to our local clubs on how to handle it if something bad happens, how to prevent it from happening in the first place. So thank you, Jeff, and thank you to the test kitchen.
Yes. Real quick, Greg, real quick.
No, I just want to say, like Jeff said, that he was really embarrassed about it, but in the long run, that was probably one of the best educational experiences that has happened in the Zoom test kitchen.
I agree. Guy, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, we got a couple. Another one in. This one's from YouTube. But Lou Perez is asking, how can Zoom test kitchen help someone who is looking to create a proof of concept or just wants to get more comfortable with Zoom before hosting Zoom meetings and events?
Come to Zoom test kitchen.
Yeah, just show up, and it's
Come to
perfect
Zoom test
response.
kitchen.
Show up. Yeah.
Next question.
Next one's coming in from Tolo Lopez Waterman in Astoria, New York. What about this career makes you love it?
It's too long.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a pretty lengthy response. One, it's technology. Two, I like change. I mean, my whole sales engineering thing is in a day I could go visit 6 customers, and I like the consulting role, if you will, kind of a different place each day or whatnot. And I love a challenge. And guess what? A live broadcast, whether it's Zoom only or broadcasted Zoom, branded Zoom, it's a challenge, right? We all know, anybody involved in that it's a challenge to keep the bugs out and the interruptions out and to really guide folks. So the challenge turning into a success is just that's fantastic. I don't need anybody to tell me that I did a good job in this business. If I get it, great. But there's a lot of jobs where you really have to seek that. When that broadcast or that meeting goes off without a hitch or near without a hitch, that's good enough for me. So that's what keeps me going.
So I have a question that I want to ask, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my question, but Jeff, you don't have to answer it now. If you want the answer to the question that I'm about to ask Jeff, come to Zoom Test Kitchen. All right. So my last question for tonight for Jeff is, you're speaking to the world. What do you want them to know about video production? Now, Jeff is not going to answer it. So you have to come to Zoom Test Kitchen to get the answer. God, we have one more question.
We got two. We got one in from Bo Cordell in Charleston, South Carolina. And he asked, can you share any success stories of productions or solutions that may not have been as successful without Zoom Test Kitchen?
Oh my
Come to
goodness.
Zoom Test Kitchen for that, for
Yeah.
that one.
They're
Next
all
one.
affected some way. Yep.
Next question.
Next one, last one's up from Chris Clark in Tempe, Arizona. Says, Jeff, how were you affected by the Facebook outage yesterday?
I couldn't hit Facebook from my phone. I mean, the moment I kind of woke up and couldn't hit it on my phone, I didn't even go digging any further. I saw the headline, saw that it was a headline, it was a worldwide issue, and I just didn't go any further because I just go, that's way outside my circle of control, and so I just left it all good. Never got an email, never got any messaging, and it all worked itself out because the world knew. And when they all know, they don't come to me as if it's my problem.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to ask final words and final words. So Lois, I know you got to leave first. So go ahead, Lois. Final word.
I'm off to have a wonderful time with my husband, and I will see you all next Friday. And I hope all those new folks come and join us, because it doesn't matter who you are. You're welcome.
No, thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Lois. Dr. Edelson.
Jeff, can you identify a point when you realized the test kitchen was real, sort of like the corduroy bear story? When was it real to you?
The first time Sam from Zoom showed up, that was when it really became real. Like, I mean, and believe you me, getting Zoom to show up in the Zoom test kitchen was not a chase for me. Yeah, I didn't go fight that battle to try to finally get it to happen. And then the second time he showed up, he contacted me. I didn't even ask him, for the second time. So that's when I felt like we're really doing something good, and when I in fact got to meet the CTO and say hi and so forth. I mean, that connection has been invaluable.
Okay, let's mute Lois. Okay, Dr. Clark.
I was kind of enjoying listening to Lois's birthday preparations. I just wanted to thank Jeff and all the panelists for a wonderful evening and conversation. It's one of the most conversational conversations that I remember in the series of conversations with Tony Mobley. And it's magic. Conversation is magic. It can't be commanded, but this group brought all the magic ingredients together tonight, and I'm grateful to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Greg Gibson.
I just want to say, Jeff, I have personally benefited from Test Kitchen, and certainly I've benefited from my relationship with you. And I'm just really thankful that I sent my phone number to that, person that I didn't know anything about, who sent me a Facebook message out of the blue. So, it's not every day that I, somebody on Messenger that I've never met before sends me a note and asks me for my phone number. So, but look, I appreciate all the conversations that we've had personally, and thanks so much for giving us all a platform where we can come in and, like everybody said, practice. You practice so many different things in the world, and whoever thinks you need to practice video production, but you do. And thanks for giving us sort of our little gymnasium that we can kind of come in and practice our techniques.
Thank you. Mr. Andy Carluccio.
Yeah, again, I just want to echo a really personal thanks to Jeff, both for the kitchen itself, the opportunity to learn as I've had the opportunity to do, but also the ability to sort of be in the trenches with you and work it out together and to get to know you at a personal level. I really enjoyed, I think most of everything. I enjoyed working on an event with you. That was just like the capstone of really being able to like dig into that friendship. And it really does feel genuine, you know, and it's amazing how this platform has the ability to do that. So I'm grateful for the kitchen. I'm grateful for the platform, but most especially I'm grateful for the ability to have you as my friend. So thank you so much.
Mr. George E. Kennedy Jr.
You're not gonna let me let go, are you? I don't get to land in the kitchen every Friday, but I definitely watch it after. Jeff, I just want to say, as we say in the Caribbean, big up yourself.
Thank you, George. Mr. Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I just want to say, Jeff, yeah, I admire your dedication. I know we had many discussions on the phone, and wanted to get this thing lifted off so we could have a breeding ground for people to have ideas and test things out. And it's really grown. And I've co-hosted a couple times, and I know what it takes to be in front of people for hours on end. And I just got to say, I admire your dedication to getting there all these hours. I mean, it's just a ton of time. And I know we all benefit in other ways to get gigs or whatever, but it's just this growth of the community. And again, hats off to Andy Carluccio as well. And everybody on this panel has just been an inspiration to getting this platform to a whole nother level. And I love how we're able to use it in ways that, heck, we might even be winding up doing some big virtual events with conference coming up. I mean, we'll see how this all plays out, but it's a nice place to play. And I'm looking forward to playing with conference in the Zoom Test Kitchen. So be there this Sunday. Oh, not Sunday.
That's right.
This Friday.
And the final word from Jeff.
I feel like I'm being eulogized, which is just bizarre, but I feel, and I'm living through it. I'm so grateful for, you know, the feedback and the comments and the relationships, you know, that have been built and continue to grow and strengthen in the Zoom Test Kitchen. You know, just trying to keep it real. You know, it's not it's not the topic, it's the community. It's the workshop, and it can and really should, you know, exist anywhere. And office hours has obviously done just an incredible job, you know, with, you know, really focused first 2 hours of, of the show every day. But now those extra additional 21 hours of the day or whatnot that give that opportunity for these kind of rolling dynamic communities to just pop up. And that's, you know, although it's, you know, it sounds like an infomercial for, you know, Zoom Test Kitchen. An infomercial is meant to create revenue, and you know, we don't do that, period, you know. And there's just nothing to be collected other than knowledge, experience, and friendships. And you know, if I can do it again, you know, on the next tech or platform or whatnot, I would. If I could go to work for Zoom tomorrow, I'd probably do it. Just because I am very, very passionate about the product and the company, especially. I think the community of the Zoom Test Kitchen, I hope, is well aligned with the culture of Zoom itself as an organization. And I think there's a lot of right things going on. And that's coming from somebody who is kind of not sworn off, but definitely abandoned IT. But they happen to be an organization because of what they've created, the support they've, you know, provided, and their development. I don't know how I can't really expect the world to recognize and appreciate the success of their rapid development, but it's fascinating to me how quickly they release and the percentage of success that they have with the rapid pace of release and new development. So a lot of right things going on. Tony, I want to say thanks so much. You know, it's just fun watching, you know, who you are, who you've become, how you've grown, and, you know, having your own doggone show and so forth. It's just fascinating. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and you know, kind of reminisce, if nothing else, of what's been going on, you know, over the last year and a half or so in the Zoom Test Kitchen. So thanks.
You are very welcome, and thank you for being you and creating the Zoom Test Kitchen. Thank you very much, Jeff. And that is it for tonight. I encourage you again, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Zoom Test Kitchen. This is another call out. Zoom Test Kitchen, Friday. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to thank Jeff so much for being here. And I want to thank all of my guests for being here tonight. I know that all of these people that are here on the panel tonight are busy people, and they have a lot of different things that they're doing and juggling to be here with me and Jeff tonight. So again, thank you all so much for being here. I want to give special thanks to Kimberly Mobley, the Global Family and Friends, Alex Lindsay, Office Hour members, the DVE Store, Liminal Entertainment Technologies, Byte Hive, VDO360.com, ApproveForLoan.com, Toluk Lopez Waterman, the show producer, Mr. Ken Jordan, Aaron Huslage, Chirag Cheetah, Jonas Dattell, Marcus Lee Folk, Richard Lavery, Chris Fenwick, Manilo Lozano, Jeffrey Powers. And for those names that I left off that you may be seeing on the screen, I apologize that I did not say your name, but you know you are loved and appreciated. Thank you all so much. And then next week, the Music Man, Mr. Todd Reynolds, will be on next week. And so we encourage you to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and share with your friends. We want to keep conversations with Tony Mobley going, so we need those likes and subscriptions. Thank you all so much. Good night. Take care. Good night. Bye-bye.